All right, we are back at the RSAC Conference 2025. We're recording live from the Cyber Risk TV studio and broadcast alley at Moscone West, not South or North or any of those other places. Yeah, I keep getting them all confused too, but they're all around here somewhere. But I don't know which way is West and North. I just go and see what's going on. I'm Doug White, and joining me for this interview is Stephan Zhu.
Hello.
Yeah, hi. And Stephan is the Senior Director of Security Analytics. Cool title.
Thank you.
I like that title a lot. For OpenText. So, I mean, I like that title. I want a title like that.
It took a long time for me to assemble the right words in the right order and actually have a meaningful title. And that's what they came up with.
I'm glad you get to do that. I never get to do that. They're just like professor. It's like boring or something like that.
Professor's not
News
bad, though.
host. No, it's not that bad.
I don't have professor in my title yet. So
I wanted maestro. Like in Europe, they have you'll see like maestro.
How about Duke? Duke's good too, right?
Oh, anytime.
Yeah.
Any call me.
I could be Duke of Security Analytics.
I'll take Duke. I'll take Earl. I don't care. Like anything at all.
You sort of fiefdom.
So one of the things I was reading, what you were interested in talking about, was about redefining threat detection.
Sure.
And this was immediately something that was near and dear to me. And I'll tell you a story about it. Long ago, I mean, you'll see how long. I was working on a PDP 11.
Okay. Yes.
and
wait till you hear my follow-up to your story, but please.
Okay,
keep going.
but I mean, it was
PDP 11.
I was told I should not. They didn't say secure it. I would just take care of it because there was no such thing as security then.
Right.
I mean, that was not. But we were worried about it. We just didn't know we were worried about it.
Yeah.
And I ended up writing some scripts because I was wanting to capture things that people were doing. And one of the typing RCD, which is an old command for change directory on PDP 11.
Okay.
And it was a bad idea when I wrote the script because all of a sudden I came in and I've got 875 million entries in a folder, and I'm like, and in fact that was when I learned that was where I learned awk because I had to parse this crap.
Okay.
And it was so difficult. And I know that that's something, that an area that you're working on is just sort of threat detection and how do we do this in a modern age?
Yeah, I mean, we were talking earlier, and both you and I have like a math background, and that's really where I'm coming from at the threat detection level. So,
Okay.
I've been doing like analytics and AI in its various forms for about 20 years now.
Okay.
And after the first 10 years of solving some really interesting problems, I actually wanted to solve some of the most important problems in the world, and a lot of them ended up being in cyber. So there really was no UEBA at the time. There really was no sort of anomaly detection. There really was no, certainly no AI as we think of it now with LLMs and all that good stuff. But I had a thesis that I could sort of apply those same sort of classical statistical methods to be able to sort of find and baseline what normal behaviors look like in various formats, and then essentially quantify and detect abnormal behavior. And that's kind of the foundation of how we think about threat detection. I mean, there's other improvements that we've made on top of it, but that's really at the core of it.
That's really cool, actually. I mean, I like that idea. So I mean, that was really early AI stuff,
Yeah,
and then it's
quite
now
early.
evolved into like current AI kind of stuff.
Yes.
Because I think one of the sort of statements that would be here now is AI fighting AI to stop AI from attacking AI. So all that has started to create this kind of, how do you ever get to the point where you can assess and evaluate all these threats?
It's so funny. People assign a valence to AI, right? They talk about good AI versus bad AI, and for me, it's
all just AI.
It's all just
There's no good AI, no
just,
bad AI.
I mean, it's really just math, right? Exactly.
Well,
So,
yeah. Everything's really just math.
I mean, fundamentally, it's all about, are you using this math or the tool for good or for bad, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I view it this very same way. I actually don't lead with the AI or the math. I'm not like wielding a big AI hammer and trying to like find things to hit. I really am thinking about the use case. So what's the use case? Insider threat. Okay, why is it hard? Because you've got an authorized user running authorized applications on authorized machines, and they're still doing bad things, right? So standard access control does not work. So that leads you to a set of quantifiable methods and statistical anomaly detection and risk assessment, all of the, expected utility theory. So all the other techniques that have risen from that use case are the ones that I think that's the right approach to thinking about
Yeah.
how using AI to combat AI.
And I think it's the original use case. I mean, because originally there were no outside users; it was all insiders,
Exactly.
and there were not even that many of them. But they were the biggest threats that we ever dealt with because that was the people who knew the system. They had access to, like you said, they had access to the system. So is this all like about behavioral? I mean, is that where this goes? Is that we have to learn to say? I mean, because if you and I are sitting here and we see somebody doing something bad right over there,
Right.
we're able to perceive that that's a problem.
Yeah, ultimately, I agree with you. It is all about behavior, but I'm always interested in adding a qualifier because I think when people hear the word behavior, especially when they think about the term user and entity behavior analytics, they focus on the user and they forget about the entity, right? So when we think about how useful it is to understand what normal behavior looks like, it's not just a human and how they normally behave. It's interesting to know what a process normally does and how it may or may not typically access the network. It's interesting to know how specific machines behave normally at different times of day, and
Right.
what command line arguments are typically used by a sysadmin at this particular point in time, and what are not, and might be used in some sort of privilege escalation activity. And certainly in the age of sort of more recent AI advances, I think it's going to become increasingly important to sort of understand what agents in your system are typically doing and what
Right.
they shouldn't be doing.
Yeah, because I mean, I've been putting together like some stuff for a class I have to do in the fall called intrusion detection,
Right.
and I'm adding agents to that are both good and bad agents, and I know they're really just math and they're just doing what they were told, but there's ones I have as good guys and ones I have that are bad guys, and I want them to be as sort of what I call polymorphic as possible, so that they're not just obvious bad people. They're
Absolutely.
doing different things, and maybe they even do some normal things, because I want them to kind of look like real.
Right.
Real insiders are doing things, and maybe they're working, and they decide, you know what, I could go look at this,
Yeah.
and then that becomes a big problem.
And I love that example too, because it's a good example of AI versus AI, right? So what you described, where you've got a malicious agent that is intentionally performing normal activities most of the time, and then every once in a while sneaking in that malicious behavior. I mean, that's an example of something like model poisoning, right? As you know, like trying to sort of tweak the baselines so that what is sort of malicious is sort of lost in the noise, or maybe you've got sort of adjustments that you've made to some of the underlying probability models.
Yep.
But really, like with any sort of mathematical method, there are ways to work around that. There are ways in which you can still see that, and
I mean, if I was writing malicious agents, they would definitely be like that. They would be statistical models that maybe use various distributions to randomize their behaviors, and normally they do very normal, very boring
right.
things.
That's right.
It's just that one behavior that I hope you no longer notice, because
That's
you're
right.
used to seeing that behavior. You see, and all of a sudden that's when it goes and does what I want it to do.
And again, we're talking about this like it's something that only an AI could do. But if you think about it, there's no real difference between that behavior and a sort of really smart adversary who's already broken into the network, or maybe they're already an insider and they're doing a low and slow, right?
And they don't even have to be really smart.
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
true.
this could literally be one of these people back on the PDP-11 who was working on their homework in engineering 1010, and then they just decide, I'm going to see what's over here,
Right.
and they just deviate. And that was what I was learning. I didn't know what I was doing, so I was just trying to figure things out. And by watching those behaviors and going, I started developing a list of users that I was worried about.
Right.
And it was literally about profiling people into this sort of possible potential problems, probably not.
Right.
And because some people never deviated from the instructions they got, and some people immediately deviated. But there's really scary ones. The bad ones I knew. The really scary ones were in the middle.
That's
Well, what do you think like the current biggest worries are from all this?
I'm going to pick on two specific techniques that at least we're
Okay.
seeing emerge. So the one is sort of AI-powered deepfakes and phishing, right? Obviously, with LLMs being so readily available,
Yeah.
it's more economically feasible right now to sort of really generate en masse some really good phishing emails without any of the traditional tells. The second one that I'm actually seeing is a really dramatic increase in living off the land techniques. So taking advantage, whether they're an intentional insider or maybe they're an outsider that broke in and did an
Right.
account
Or
takeover.
bought access.
Yeah, exactly. So they're using living off the land to essentially blur the line between sort of expected behaviors and malicious behaviors. I mean, we still see them because they're essentially doing, they're accessing PSExec in ways that really they shouldn't be, right?
Yeah.
WMI stuff that
But
shouldn't
that's
be
subtle.
happening.
I
But
mean, that's
yes.
living off the land stuff. Because I mean, again, that was always when I was doing pen tests and things like that. That was always, and that's what I try to talk to students about. Is this like I said, the bad person walks in with a shotgun.
Right.
Bad person, problem. Good person sitting at their desk working. But it's those people that you don't know what their behavior is that are very, very worrisome to everyone, and would be my style.
Right.
You know, I don't want to jump in and deface your website and go, you're an idiot. I want to come in and create I don't know, a background job
you gotta
that
do
looks
something
important
subtle,
that you don't notice, and it sits here for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks, and maybe just every now and then it does something.
Yeah. So it's interesting. Our hit rate is actually pretty good. I think our sort of inventory of algorithms that detect those types of threats, no matter how sort of subtle they try to be, I think we're over 80% detection of all sort of red team attacks, which is, I'm pretty proud of that. I'm pretty proud of that. And the thing that makes it so hard is kind of exactly what you described. The limitations of a truly malicious insider attack is really only limited by the sort of motivation and imagination of the human, right? Humans are incredibly creative, right?
Yeah.
Like, I remember watching a guy sort of on the inside steal source code by sort of paging through the source code one screen at a time, taking screenshots and then mailing those screenshots into like 3 different Gmail accounts. Obviously, he's trying to subvert, any sort of simple DLP rule-based systems or whitelist or things like that.
Is this the essence of this core threat detection and response product that you have?
Absolutely.
I mean, that's what this is doing. So this is AI looking at behavior. I know you don't want to say behaviors, but AI that's assessing
exactly right.
this environment, looking for these insider threats.
Exactly.
Because, I think these are the biggest threats that we have, and they worry me a lot because I always worried about those people.
Yeah, we are actually well known for our insider threat detection.
Right. Yeah.
I would humbly claim that we're among the best in the industry.
Yeah, I mean, I know the name, so I mean, it's like immediate with that. So, obviously this is going to escalate. I mean, this is sort of where this goes because, like you said, LLMs are now available to, on my phone. They're available to me. I can buy time on them if I don't even want to try to run the horsepower locally to train them. I can buy one that's either pre-trained.
And they're so small now, you can run it on your notebook if you want.
Well, yeah, once you train it up, you can just pull it down and run it on a notebook computer. And so I can sit here in the lobby and run an LLM that's doing this. I mean, how are we going to shift our defensive postures from this? Because the story I always tell about this is from William Gibson, another Canadian, from 1987, where he's talking about AIs attacking AIs and people hiring AIs to defend against other AIs and all these kind of things. How do we need to be shifting our defensive posture now? I mean, does this just need to literally be shifting into the AI realm so that it becomes beyond poor old me sitting there at the PDP-11?
Right.
Because I'm never going to keep up.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like you, I spend a lot of my time just doing education. I'm always torn, right? As big of a fan I am of AI, like we discussed earlier, I've been doing this for decades now at this point. I'm also sometimes distressed by how much magic people ascribe to AI, right? They think it's a magical tool that can do anything. So a lot of it is just being aware that there are these really good techniques that are now available to you, and they can be used for good, not just for bad. There's a lot of buzz around there, and so sometimes people do think it's magic, but it's not. I like saying AI is magical, but it's not magic, right?
No, it's not.
So, and really, there's really nothing an AI can't do that a really smart human couldn't do on your behalf. You just don't have enough of them.
Right.
And they need to sleep, they need coffee, they need to eat. Whereas a good chunk of math could be working 24/7 sort of on your way. So a lot of it for me is around sort of automation, scalability, cost effectiveness of sort of taking what you would need and otherwise, an infinite number of really smart threat hunters, for example, to be able to do, and just automate that in a way that you can deploy it on your side, on the defensive side at scale.
And I mean, so the other part of this problem was even way back then was just being overwhelmed.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, as a system admin or whatever,
Yeah.
when I set those rules up, and didn't even know what I was doing.
Sure.
I didn't know that later there would be snort and all these kind of rules, these very static things.
Right.
But I was what I was doing. I'm looking for things. I'm triggering signatures, and I'm generating, and I'm generating a stack of green bar this high every day that I would, somehow need to go through.
Right.
And I think a lot of modern shops face that with their analysts just going, I'm overwhelmed. I've got so much stuff I'm supposed to approve or deny or whatever. So how does this sort of facilitate that? Is it just reducing that off the table and saying, okay,
I mean, what a great question. So we were very mindful of alert. I mean, alert fatigue is real. We didn't want to add to the noise. So when we took the approach of sort of how do we mathematically architect a solution that will actually just not add to the list of alerts that you're already overwhelmed by, that's not what we do. What we're doing is we're taking the alerts that you already have and we're just telling you where to look. Hey, look at this guy, right? Look at that guy. And the way we do that is by sort of looking at various data streams, including the set of alerts that you've already got, including the endpoint type data, identity data, like whatever data you have. We're not asking you to deploy another agent.
Right.
We're just analyzing the data that you've already got and finding the most anomalous, but not randomly, generically anomalous.
No.
It's always in the context of a security use case. It's always in the context of a known sort of MITRE attack and technique. And we're just saying, okay, out of the 100 people that you might have in your organization, or 1,000 people, or 10,000 people, here's your leaderboard of risk.
Right.
Look at this machine at this time, and hopefully
that's what I wanted.
Yeah, we're just trying to save you time.
Back in 1981, that's what I wanted. I was like, I wish I had something like
Yeah.
that. I guess I should have built it and I would have been ahead of you in the game, but unfortunately, I'm
we
too
would have been
lazy.
competitors, Doug. I don't know about that.
It might have been fun though.
True.
Well, to find out more about all this, you can go to all of our RSAC 2025 coverage. You can go to securityweekly.com/RSAC, or you can go to securityweekly.com /OpenText RSAC. It's hard to say sometimes, but that will get you to a landing page about that. Thank you so much, Stephan. Joe, that was really enjoyable.
Absolute pleasure.
I wish we had like another 2 hours that we could talk about this, but the rest of you, stick around. We got more interviews. We got live coverage, not quite round the clock, but I'm trying to get that because the crew just keeps saying, man, like we could use more work to do. So stick around and we'll see you next time.